You are sitting completely still right now. You are safe. Nobody is watching you. And yet, somewhere beneath the surface of that calm, your brain is running a program it has never once turned off. A program built not for your office chair or your couch or your bedroom, but for a world that wanted to kill you. This is not a metaphor. Your brain genuinely does not know that world is gone. Right now, without your awareness, a structure buried deep inside your skull called the amygdala is scanning. It is sampling your environment roughly every millisecond, asking one question: is something trying to eat me? It does not ask whether you are happy. It does not ask whether your rent is paid. It has one job, and it has never been given a memo saying the job is finished. The neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux spent decades mapping what he called the fear circuit, the ancient neural pathway that processes threat before conscious thought even begins. His research showed that sensory signals take two routes: a fast, primitive route straight to the amygdala that bypasses rational thought entirely, and a slower, more accurate route through the prefrontal cortex. The fast route gets there in about 12 milliseconds, the slow route, closer to 300. Your brain chose to wire fear first and think second, and it did so for a very good reason. For 99% of human history, being slow to fear meant being dead. Think about what your ancestors were actually living through, not thousands of years ago, millions. The lineage that eventually became you spent an almost incomprehensible stretch of time on the African savanna, on the open plains, in the forests and river valleys of a world packed with things that wanted to eat them: leopards, hyenas, saber-toothed cats, giant crocodiles, snakes, eagles large enough to carry a child. Your ancestors were not apex predators. They were medium-sized primates who happened to be clever enough to survive. And surviving required a very specific mental posture. It required hypervigilance. Your heart beats faster when you walk to your car at night. That is not irrational. That is a 2 million-year-old warning system misidentifying the parking lot as the savannah. The threat detection circuitry in your brain cannot tell the difference between a shadow in a dark alley and a shadow in the tall grass. It was not built to make that distinction. It was built to fire fast and ask questions later. This is what researchers call the negativity bias, and it runs deeper than most people realize. Rick Hansen, a neuropsychologist at UC Berkeley, describes the brain as being like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. One frightening event, one moment of humiliation, one near miss, the brain logs it with extraordinary precision. 100 safe days, they slide off. The mind is not broken. It is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do: treat every threat as potentially fatal and remember it forever, because the cost of forgetting a real predator was death, and the cost of over-remembering a harmless one was nothing. You have felt this. You scroll through your phone and one critical comment locks into your memory while 20 kind ones disappear. You replay the awkward conversation from 3 years ago as if it happened this morning. You lie awake at 2 a.m. convinced that the worst possible version of every situation is the most likely one. That is not weakness. That is the ancient brain performing threat surveillance in an environment it was never designed for. But here is where it gets stranger. Your brain does not just react to physical predators, it generalizes. Your social world, the looks people give you, the tone of a message, the way someone paused before answering, these are all processed by the same threat detection machinery that once watched for leopards. Because for your ancestors, social rejection was not just uncomfortable, it was a death sentence. Being cast out of the group meant no fire, no shelter, no shared hunting, no one to watch your back at night. Evolutionary psychologist Mark Leary has spent years documenting what he calls sociometer theory, the idea that your self-esteem functions as an internal gauge of social acceptance. When that gauge drops, when you feel rejected or judged or left out, the brain responds with the same neurological alarm system it uses for physical danger. Brain imaging studies have shown that social pain and physical pain activate overlapping regions of the brain. Getting left out of a group chat triggers your predator detection system. That sounds almost absurd. But it makes complete sense when you understand that for almost the entire span of human existence, social exclusion and death were roughly the same thing. Your chronic anxiety, your obsessive rehearsal of conversations, your inability to let an insult go, your constant background sense that something might go wrong, none of it is weakness. None of it is dysfunction. It is an extremely well-tuned ancient instrument playing in the wrong concert hall. Now consider your stress response. When your amygdala detects a threat, it triggers the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, a chain reaction that floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline, increases your heart rate, dilates your pupils, shunts blood away from your digestive system and toward your muscles, and sharpens your attention to a single point. This is the fight-or-flight response, and it is one of the most elegant physiological systems ever produced by evolution. In the context of a predator, it is magnificent. It turns you into a faster, stronger, more alert version of yourself in approximately 20 seconds. The problem is it does the same thing for an email from your boss. Stress researcher Robert Sapolsky at Stanford has documented in extraordinary detail why modern humans are uniquely prone to chronic stress. Most animals only activate the stress response when a real, present physical threat appears. A zebra being chased by a lion has a surging stress response. The moment the lion gives up, the zebra's cortisol drops and it goes back to grazing, apparently unbothered. The zebra does not spend that evening ruminating on the chase. It does not wake up the next morning feeling vaguely anxious about lions in general. You do, because you have a prefrontal cortex. That same structure that makes you capable of planning, language, and imagination also makes you capable of generating the stress response with nothing but a thought. You can sit in a perfectly safe room and flood your body with cortisol just by imagining something going wrong. You can keep that stress response running for months, even years, based entirely on a future event that may never happen. This is not a flaw in your reasoning. It is the biological cost of being able to imagine the future. Anticipation kept your ancestors alive. Chronic anticipation is slowly killing you. Your brain evolved an extraordinary early warning system and then found itself in a world with very few actual emergencies but an essentially infinite supply of things to worry about. Here is the part nobody tells you. You can work with this system. You cannot override it completely. The amygdala is not under conscious control, and pretending otherwise is how people end up blaming themselves for things their nervous system does automatically. But the slow pathway, the one that runs through the prefrontal cortex, can catch up. It takes longer. But it can update the assessment. This is what happens when you name what you are feeling. Research by Matthew Lieberman at UCLA demonstrated something remarkable. Simply putting your emotional experience into words, saying, "I feel anxious right now," measurably reduces amygdala activity. The act of labeling transfers processing toward the prefrontal cortex. The predator brain quiets slightly when the thinking brain says, "There is no predator here." Not because the fear circuit switches off, it does not, but because the cortex can, with practice, begin to recognize its own ancient miscalibrations. The world changed faster than evolution could follow. Agriculture, cities, electricity, the internet, all of it happened in a blink so fast that biology could not keep up. The brain you carry was optimized for a world that ended, by geological standards, about 5 minutes ago. It is not going to change in your lifetime. But knowing this, really knowing it, changes the way you interpret your own mind. When the anxiety spikes for no visible reason, it is the ancient scan running. When you cannot stop replaying a social slight, it is the social survival system marking a potential threat. When your heart rate jumps in a dark parking lot, it is the leopard detection module doing its job in the wrong century. You are not broken. You are just an ancient creature in a very new world. And tonight, when you sit completely still and find that low hum of unease still running somewhere beneath your thoughts, you will know exactly where it comes from. 2 million years of looking over your shoulder trying to make sure you stayed alive long enough to be sitting right here.